everyone, and welcome to Publish It Group Talks. The aim of this channel today is to create a platform that lives up to a motto of Arrive Smart, Leave Smarter. We're here to educate, inform and inspire our audience. The inspiration for the show has come from conversations I've had with my network of industry professionals and also creatives over the years. Conversations that were so informative and inspirational that I almost wished I could record them and share them with others and other creators, individuals who may find it useful or helpful. Our studio guest today is Warrick Guest. Welcome, Warrick.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here. Warrick is an award-winning creative director with a strong background in brand identity design and brand strategy. He has 20 years experience as well as great success. During his career, Warrick's been responsible for creating innovative brand identities, developing intelligent marketing and below-the-line advertising campaigns, as well as establishing creative timeframes, building efficient high-level teams, and pitching complete branding concepts to various top-tier clients across Africa with a focus on Nigeria, Kenya, Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa. It's quite impressive, and I brought you on the show, Warrick, and also for the audience because I feel that you have so much knowledge to share, and that knowledge is often only privy to those who know you in terms of your circle or friends or clients who can have a conversation with you, which is why it's so relevant for the audience that are listening, because I think the most important thing that we're always wanting to understand, and that there's a lot of misconception, and I also speak a lot in the show, I speak from my own experience, is that we look at brand, but we don't really understand it, even as a creative.
Yeah.
And I think unless you niche in that market, you understand what brand is and you almost have a structure for brand. And that's why the first question I'd like to pose to you today is, why is brand so important?
I think it's quite an interesting thing when you say why brand is important, because to everyone, when you say, not everyone understands what a brand is about. I can say and generally, like you'll say to the general public, what is a brand? I say it's a logo. It's not a logo, it's way beyond that. It's every single touch point that you actually deal with the brand that you interact with. So when I say brand, it could be, let's take something like a Standard Bank, for instance. How does that client deal with that brand? What is their first sort of interaction with that brand? So, for me, when I say a brand is important, is because it is a living sort of business asset. It's not just your logo, it's not just a color, it's not just a typeface. Although those are your brand assets, it's way more than what it really is. So to me, your brand it becomes part of your business. Previously you would say, here's your business and your marketing department, here's a bit of brand and the rest of the business follows here. At the moment, it actually needs to be combined as one, because at the end of the day, your brand is your business bottom line. It's your richest business asset at the end of the day. So that's kind of where, when I say brand is that important, it needs to actually be a bottom line for business. It can't just be a logo or a pretty picture or a color. It's way more than that. It's more sort of whole encompassing kind of brand assets that come to life in various sort of touch points that you interact with that brand.
What would a brand agency or an individual such as yourself in your business capacity offer a client? What would you do?
Well, it depends. I mean, every client generally has a different need or a different need state. So what we do is, if a client approaches us and we say, right, so we're going to have a look and see what your current brand is. We'll look at your competitor analysis. We'll see who's in your markets as well. And based on that, we'll make certain calls on how we're going to either refresh a company, or rebrand a company, or are we going to stay in a similar kind of space. So companies generally would come through to us to give them a total whole new makeover. Be it a new brand identity, which is your logo. We look at every single brand asset that is out there. We pick it apart one by one to see which is your strongest brand asset. So be it color could be a massive thing. I mean, so in your banking industry at the moment, blue is everywhere, because blue meant wealth, it meant stability, it meant finance. So back in the day, you look at a color and you go, right, so color is what we need to play around with. We need to go with color psychology. We in the financial space, we go with blue. Nowadays you can't do that. Nowadays you're using colors to differentiate. So you see a lot of banks or a lot of businesses are actually changing where they come from by changing their color psychology straight away. So when a business comes through to us, we look at every single brand asset that they have, see which ones the client has bigger recall on, and whether we do or do not change those assets going forward. But before that, massive informal phase happens, where we look at every single competitor in the market. We do interviews with all their key stakeholders, as well as with people within the business as well, be it clients, be it competitors, just to kind of get an overview of the business to see what we do need to change before we change anything. So there has to be a massive informed phase that comes along. From there we move into a strategy phase, where we look at the business strategically and see what parts are aligned within the business. If we need to look at brand architecture, we do brand architecture as well with that, if it's part of the offering. And then from there, basically informs where creative goes. But at the end of the day, it's not traditional sort of agency where strategy leads design. Those days are over now. Now design and strategy need to work cohesively as one element.
It's interesting because I don't even think I understand what brand strategy is, just from my experience, because it's very niche. Is that so? Do you study something like that? Could you define it as well?
You do study brand strategy versus sort of big conceptual work or big strategy ideas. Brand strategy for me it's the sort of starting blocks of a business, or starting blocks of strategy, where guys will kind of say, well, this is my business, this is what my reason for being is, and from there I build my creative concept on top of that. But if you do not have that business strategy bottom layer, I mean, I take it like a building block. It basically sits at the bottom. So it's your foundation that every creative execution, or everything your business takes that goes to market builds on top of that to go forward. At the end of the day, it's a reason for being. It's a reason for why we are here. Why do we do what we do? So to me, that is the simplest way I can explain what a brand strategy is.
What do you think a brand strategy should entail as your key elements? If you were just going for a basic, out-of-the-box strategy, talking to an individual who has no budget, they're sort of on their own, they're starting out, what would be, let's say, the basics that they would need to think about to make their own strategy?
Yeah, I think basically, like I said, there's a massive informed phase that needs to, and you've got to understand your market, you've got to understand where you're coming from, who you're dealing with, who your competitors are at the end of the day. So you need to look at that strategically. Once you have parked that, what is your differentiating factor? What is going to make you stand out amongst your competitors? Because you can keep on doing what they are doing, or you can innovate to take a step forward. So you need to find out what your differentiating factor is going to be. So be it an offering that's slightly different. So now you've got all these, say, fintech businesses that are now starting to talk in the banking space, and now the banks are kind of getting a bit weary, going, well, hang on a sec, what are we actually going to do to differentiate ourselves? Because when I say to a client, you've got to worry about the likes of Google and Facebook, they go, no, but they're not in our category. I say, but they could be. Those are the guys who can jump up to that level very quickly, quicker than you can, and basically leapfrog where you're going from. So you need to find out what your differentiating factor is, what's going to make you stand out in the market. Once you've got that right, you can build your creative platform on that, or you can dictate to where your business is kind of going. But then again, that being said, from a strategy, I mean, that's your basic part that you want to do with the strategy, is to understand what you're about, where you're going, what's your differentiating factor, and what your creative platform is for all your executions going forward and going to market. But then on the side of that, you can build, there's sort of like, not really bolt-on add-ons, but you can build from there. You've got your tone of voice. How do you speak to your competitors, your industry, to your clients? Messaging that goes along with that. So if we say messaging, maybe you've got, say, again with the banking, you've got personal, you've got business, you've got wealth. So those are, say, sectors you're kind of playing in. When you're talking to a business person, you're talking in a slightly different tone of voice. It's a bit more sort of upper kind of sort of bigger words, more business kind of speak. Whereas if I'm talking to you, being the individual, being a personal person who deals with the bank from a personal banking level, it's more conversational. It's a bit more easier to understand because at the end of the day, your bank becomes your partner. It's not just this organization that sits there just to, to put money in the bank and get money out, but they need to enrich your life. So how do you talk to your different sort of key stakeholders, your different market segments as well?
And how would one go about branding their business?
It depends on how you want to look at that. Because from branding a business to me is, well, not really to me, to the layman on the street would be from your logo right the way down through to a bit of color palette, maybe a typeface, photographic style. That's generally what people look at in terms of a brand. But a brand now goes more, it goes deeper, it goes into culture as well. So now how does a brand become culturally relevant as well? So if I'm going to brand a business, most people say it's just yourself, you're coming through to me, you've got to start a business, you haven't got a massive budget. It would go down to your basics, be it your brand assets. What's your major brand assets? Your logo, your color palette, your typeface, a bit of a photographic style, maybe there's iconography in there, which form all those little basic bits and pieces for your brand assets to go into your communications to talk to your market. And most people that used to come to us years ago were those smaller kind of startups. And that would be the baseline, what we would do for a client. From there, we can build on top of that, be it, like I say, it's your tone of voice, your messaging, a massive photographic style. Maybe the photographic style is separate for every single sector you talk in. But it's got an overarching feel, which is exactly the same, that kind of interacts with, say, personal, whether it's business, whether it's clients, whatever it may be. So it depends on what your need state is for your business. A lot of businesses we deal with now are realizing that a brand just can't be a logo on a piece of paper. And they've realized that it's more than that. And you've got to live it inside before you can actually deliver it on the outside to your competitors, your clients.
I suppose where the CI guide, the corporate identity guideline comes in, because it takes everything that you're saying and puts it into one place where there's a reference point, and then it can be referenced for those different genres as you go through.
Exactly
so the corporate identity is actually, a CI brand guideline is actually very important even for a small company.
For a small company it is. You've got to have that CI guide, as basic as it is. I mean, it could be a small, little 20-page or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, it ensures consistency for your market and how you communicate to your market. But that being said, I think the days of logo cop are also over now. I mean, a lot of businesses, you've got your marketing departments and your marketing directors who sit there all day, every day. This is wrong, this is not in the CI guide, it doesn't work according to this. There needs to be a bit more flex in the brand. And when there's more flex in that brand, it becomes a bit more of a brand that can be culturally relevant and play in culture as well. So look at someone like Nike. I mean, that logo changes in its iterations across different sort of platforms. It doesn't have to be the same, it doesn't have to be in the same place. It could be tattooed on a person's arm, it could be a pic on the shoe, whatever it may be, where you can see the brand. But it's not exactly in the same place, top right or bottom left or whatever it needs to be. That logo can play around, it can move around. So at the end of the day, people start owning that brand as a consumer, as opposed to the business just owning the brand, dictating how it's going. So businesses nowadays and brands nowadays have looked at the likes of someone like Nike, and even someone like Apple's done the same thing. They're listening to their consumers now, more so than ever, because if they don't, they're going to fall behind. So you can't just say to market, here's my product, here's my service, here's my solution, like it or don't like it, use it if you don't. Because that attitude has gone now. So brands now would dictate, back in the day they were dictating to people. Then they started talking to people, now they're talking with you. So it becomes this collaborative approach and this cohesive approach to build a brand. And I think the likes of like Apple and Nike are the first people to really start doing that, where guys went, hang on a sec, this can be a collaborative approach. We don't need to just fight with our competitors, fight with our clients and our people putting our brand out to market. But if it becomes a collaborative approach, it goes to market a bit more cohesively, it gives us a reason for being, and it gives our clients a reason to believe as well. So that's a beautiful thing about where brands are going now. But I think it's going to take a long time to get a lot of brands to that stage. More consumer brands will.
It's very similar to a restaurant where you go and you complain about the food or the service and they don't do anything about it, and then in 2 years they close down. It's that they don't want to hear what the public have to say, and so immediately we perceive it as being negative. And any feedback, even when somebody critiques your work or they say something, we always take it so personally. And it's a weird thing, because you always say don't take it personally, but how do you not take it personally?
That's exactly it.
It's the same thing. You've got to almost take it and reevaluate that criticism and see if it's not going to enhance your product, or if the person's just being negative for the sake of being negative, because that's also very destructive. And a lot of people are like that. They'll just say it's shit, or they'll have something negative to say because that's their mindset.
That's their mindset. And I think that also goes down to when you talk about your work being critiqued. So yes, we're saying about brands, consumers critiquing a brand or giving feedback. It's all very well, like you say, to say something's really crap, but give constructive feedback in order to actually build on that and actually do something better. And then take it into a second nature. As me being an agency owner and looking at my creatives, don't take things so personally. Do what's right for that brand. I know it's a difficult thing to say, being a creative myself, it happens.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot of creatives will say, they take something personally. They get given a bit of feedback, as they've had enough, I don't want to be in the industry anymore, I'm taking it personally, this is done. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily right for that market or for that solution.
It's hard.
It's damn hard. I look at all the creative directors I worked under over the years, and they used to rip my work to absolute pieces. And I looked at these guys, I thought, who the hell are you to tell me what's going on? But at the end of the day, they've been in the industry a lot longer, they understand where things are going. So I think over that time, it taught me not to take things personally. And I don't think I've taken the design personally for probably 10 years, maybe longer now.
It actually takes skill to learn how to do that.
It's a hell of a skill set, I can tell you now.
You slowly build up that thick skin.
Yeah, you have to.
You just start listening and you stop defending, and you get more focused on what actually is the objective and what the client needs.
You got
as well.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily that creative solution is not right for the clients when it may look cool from your space that you've done something really awesome. But at the end of the day, the solution might not be right for that client. So you've also got to realize that things are going to change. That I could learn from a junior designer. I could learn from an intern. Yes, I may have 20 years in the industry, but someone who's coming into the business as a younger individual sees the world differently to what I see.
Totally.
So yes, I may have big picture thinking, I may have the experience of brand, but these guys are bringing in a different kind of feel. Look at the way your millennials talk now, how they deal with brands.
Totally different.
Totally different to us. The way we dealt with brands was quite different. Back in the day, if you look at your cigarette ads and your alcohol ads, you see this guy on these massive yachts in the Caribbean, if you smoke this, you can get this. No, not really, you can't really get that. But we kind of believed that, and that's how it went. Now, you've got all these younger guys coming in, looking at brands from a different space, saying, well, if you're not adding value to my life, cheers, kick them out. So millennials are quite different in the way they're dealing with brands, and I think there's a lot us who have been in the game for a long period of time can learn from them as well.
Yeah. Just going back to a point that you mentioned earlier with regards to the CI guide being flexible, and I talk from experience because I was pushing a design around yesterday that just involved a number and a logo for a placement on a table with a corporate that took far too long to approve where the logo was going to go, and it was just a number because of the brand guideline and the question, can we put in the center, can we put in the right, can we put in the bottom, and then it has to get approved by the head office in another country, and then it comes back, and you're just thinking, it's a table number.
It's a table number.
And everyone's worried, like, but what if it gets photographed and there's a CEO in front of it, and then it's wrong? How do you create, I don't know if it is, and I could be wrong, if it is possible to create flexibility within those very strict...
There definitely is. And I'll tell you exactly how to do it. So, you've got... For me, a brand guideline, and for everyone, a brand guideline back in the day was, these are rules, you can't deviate from the rules. This is what's in the CI guide, you have the problem now.
Yeah.
It took 3 or 4 people to go through before anything got approved. And it's just a small number. It's like dealing with a business card. It's the smallest job, takes the longest period of time. It just always does. I don't know why, it's been like that for years. But what I do in a brand is I say, I break my brand into different sort of facets. I say, here's corporate brand on the left-hand side, right the way through to where flexibility is going to be here. In the corporate brand, this is the brand going out to market. This is the brand that my customers are going to see, clients are going to see. And a lot of the time when people build brands, they say it's just a brand that's going out to consumers or whatever it may be. But they've got to realize you've got different sort of stakeholder groups. You've got your consumers, you've got your internal staff, as well as you've got your suppliers that you're dealing with. So these are the people you're dealing with. Whereas people only focus on the one, going to a consumer brand. Whereas it's got to start differently internally before you can deliver external. And from the internal it goes to your competitors and to your suppliers as well. So you've got to deliver your brand across those kind of assets, or those kind of facets I should say. So build your brand, and that is your corporate brand. From your corporate brand, we do a sliding scale, and as the scale kind of goes on, it allows a bit more flexibility. So your corporate goes to market. Your next level becomes a little bit more playful, a little bit more fun, which is more internal. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to inspire your staff.
Yeah.
You can't just say to your staff, well, here's your business card, here's a brochure, and it's just boring. You've got to inspire them in order to give them a reason to believe to deliver on the brand that's going out to market. From there, in a similar kind of space, it starts going out to your suppliers. And then further on, you get to your event space.
Yes, that's where we were at.
And
was
people
event
do
space.
not do an event space. They do it to a point. They say, here's my presence branding. Here's what a pull-up banner looks like. Here's
Exactly.
what a flag is going to look like. For you, a table number, whatever it may be. And that's as far as they go. But then when it gets to that space, it needs to be a bit more flexible. So maybe in that space, your secondary color palette comes into play.
Yes.
Maybe there's a secondary font that comes in, which makes it a bit more playful, a bit more fun. It's still on brand though.
Yes.
And going even further, right to the other end of the scale, what happens if you're partnering with another brand? So we did a brand years ago. It was a brand partnership. It was done with Mini, with BMW, with T-Mobile. It was a whole bunch of brands. We worked on a T-Mobile brand years ago when I was at Interbrand, and this was quite a new way of doing things. We said, right, T-Mobile, bright magenta colors. What happens if they're partnering now with someone like Lufthansa, it's yellow? So now you're going into a branded space. It's going to have a slightly different feel to it, but it needs to feel like there's a cohesive brand sort of play between these two brands. So we took the magenta on the one side, we took the yellow on the other side, and we actually gradiented it into each other. On the left-hand side, you've still got T-Mobile's brand. On the right-hand side, you've got the endorsement brand or the brand that's partnering with them being Lufthansa. Same with BMW, blue goes into that space. Mini can bring their red in. So you can play with these colors, but this shows you the flex. And I wish I actually could show you the brand how it played out, because from brand here, right the way through to the event brand, it became a bit more fun, a bit more playful. It almost felt like you were in a kid's arcade sort of space, because it was a bit more interactive, but you were still playing in that same brand space. So you need to allow that flex by doing that. It's not always easy. A lot of clients don't normally buy into it, but the clients that do, they manage to get their brand into a cultural space a lot quicker by doing that, because now people are owning that brand. People are interacting with the brand as opposed to seeing a brand that goes to a corporate market.
And I think there's also a transitional phase, because like you're saying, you've got the millennial generation, which are coming in. They're coming in, the older generation, they're inheriting the money. They, i.e., are making the money, and they've got a different mindset. So the way that they're investing and the way that they're interacting with these different platforms requires those platforms to become more flexible.
Yes.
And it's very true.
It's exactly it. It has to be flexible. I mean, it's such a difficult one, because like I say, not many brands buy into that. But because they just see one market going to, one brand going to market, being their consumers, and that's it. They don't realize it's internal. You've got consumers, you've got an event space, you've got a co-branded space. So then it plays into a different league as well. So it's all very well and fine. It's yellow, logo's top right, you can't deviate from that. What happens if it has to go into a different kind of space? What happens if there's a co-branding and I'm only 30% of that co-brand? What's the rule according to that? Yes, generally you start playing on the other brand space. What happens if you still the headline brand, but you've got other brands, maybe 4 brands that are playing in that space with you, and it's now a co-branded event? How do we actually make sure we still own the event from our side, or own something that's a bit more fun, but still play up these guys at the same time? There has to be flex, there has to be play. I mean, even in terms of logos, we're talking about flex now. When you look at brands going to market, so here's an A4 print ad, your logo's bottom right, that's where it goes, and that's how it goes to market. And that's what the market sees. But what happens if you've just got a brand-led ad, where it's predominantly logo and maybe a web address or a tagline? Then you've got a text-based ad, so it's text, logo, web address, and the color. Then you've got your image-driven ad, which is image, text, color, and logo. They're all going to play slightly differently. You can't always say that the logo's going to be bottom right, that's where it's going to stay. It needs to move around, it needs to play, it needs to have a different feel to it. Otherwise it becomes stale.
And it creates a dilemma, because suddenly your design is either left or right, and now you need it center, and you can't have it center because the guideline says you can't, and you have to redesign your entire layout. Even your picture has to be chosen differently based on the fact that the logo is so strict it can't move.
That's exactly it. I say to a lot of clients that say, yes, here's our CR guide. We've taken you through the entire brand process from the beginning, from your brand strategy and your inform phase right the way through to your creative. We've delivered your CR guide. Here's your CR guide that you can start working with now. But what I do tell them when we deliver the CR guide, and also along that process, that CR guide is never ever complete. It never will be complete. There's new mediums going to market all the time. and digital's forced us to do that as well. So you've got all these new mediums that keep on going into market. In the event space, maybe someone comes up with something different. Yes, we've got these horrible teardrop banners that everyone has to deal with, but maybe there's a new play that we need to work with. So now I say to the client, so fine, you're going into a different market, you start to use a different medium. You're not a digitally led brand, you're mainly print, but now you're going digital. We haven't focused on digital before. Come back to us, let's solve your brand for digital, let's solve your brand for an event space. Let's tweak things when new technology comes to market. So brand will never ever be complete with a CI guide. You can never I've never seen one finished, ever. But people say, this is our CI guide, and you speak to these people in marketing departments and they are so strict. So it's like being back at school again. You send an ad to someone and say, here you go, approve this. Yeah. And they go, oh no, it's not a brand.
And you get in trouble.
That was wrong. And then they bring out a ruler and start measuring and
Exactly, they
straight
measure
away do it.
Yeah,
you expect them to smack you in the hand with a ruler too. And I say to them, no, you cannot do that. You can't measure, you can't look at things like that because the brand's got to be able to be a bit more flexible. Those days are gone. And I find time and time again, I'm still trying to educate marketing professionals on what a brand is, what a brand's about. It's unfortunate because I think we got into a space years ago where companies said, we need a marketing department or a marketing director. And that person just sits in a corner office and sits there and does their own thing. Measures and proves, and that's all they do. And they issue with your business cards, and that's kind of where it goes. But at the end of the day, they don't. They need to be a bit further, a bit more aligned into business. And you'll see in a lot of boards now, a lot of sort of big meetings, directors or whatever it may be, there's a marketing director, not a marketing manager.
Yes.
Because that person needs to be on that board of directors, because at the end of the day, your brand needs to be aligned to your business purpose. Which I think is a great place to be in, because we don't always need to educate. But at the end of the day, education is good for future business as well, because when you educate clients, they actually get to a stage where they start trusting you, because you have educated them, you've shown them where brands can go, where brands are going, trends in the market. So they build a relationship with them, and they actually trust you more to get something more to market, which is quite nice. Gone are the days of saying project-based solution, and brand was like that. Here's your brand, we would send your brand to market, and we'd hand over that brand to your ad agency or to a comms agency or whatever it may be, and then we'd step away. Those days are totally gone now. You've got to build that relationship with your client. You can't just say, here's a CI guide, our part's finished. Because that's where that gap comes in between ad and brand. And there's still a major gap. I've seen it the world over, there's a major gap. There's a big gap here because ad agencies, brand agencies, we don't necessarily like each other. Never have. It's just the way it's been.
But in that gap, there's a lot of blue water.
There's a hell of a lot of blue water.
And if someone is a little bit more innovative, they can come up with some really good strategies in order to bridge that gap as either a middle person or a crossover in some way where it can be integrated.
Totally. I mean, I think the way it should be, and it's just proof. You look at a lot of agencies, the way they have gone. You look at the likes of like your TBWA, someone like Joe Public, being from an independent space. Look at their stable and look at their offering, and then from the ad agency side, they branch up to a bit of digital and brought to PR and part of the business. And sort of they've now got another part which is brand. So they've got this entire offering to try and bridge that gap between ad and brand. It's not always easy because each department comes from a different school of thinking. Brand almost see themselves as, it's a difficult space to say, you almost see yourself as more the elitist. Then you get ad land, which is a bit more playful. It's not always on brand, but what needs to happen in businesses, and I like this approach to say we can offer the entire sort of value chain for a client, to say, right now, project kicks off, I need my brand team in there, be it my lead strategist, my lead creative. From there, I need my digital, I need my ad in there, I need my comms, I need my PR. Those people need to be in all those kickoff meetings at any given time. So at least you know what's happening along there, because it's all very well and fine to say strategy is going to dictate how brand's going to play out, which is going to dictate how ad's going to play out. And I've seen this a lot where strategy gets done, but the strategy isn't necessarily right for what's going to market, because the strategist has got their strategic cap on, they don't have a creative cap on as well. And brands go to market, strategy may look awesome, clients bought into it, it's solid, it's great, it's sound, but it's difficult to execute that as a creative approach. So by allowing everyone in the room at any given time I think it's easier to bridge a gap between ad and brand, brand and digital, ad and PR, whatever it may be. So you've got this one voice going to market as opposed to separate, sort of fragmented bits and pieces. Because I see brands are very fragmented. I see what's on digital, it's different to what's happening on market, in sort of billboards or TV, whatever it may be. And I find it's difficult with ad because the guys are doing campaign work. So traditionally with a campaign, it kind of campaign goes to market, sales go up, advert finishes, sales start tapering off or dropping, or they sit at a certain level. If you start with brand, and brand plugs into everything underneath, it gives your business a bit more purpose and a reason to believe in, and your brand stands for something. And that is what your clients are going to see straight away. Instead of saying, yeah, it's just a campaign. But that being said, now we build this awesome brand, great CI guide, and we say, cool, here it is, give it to the ad agency. They get hold of us and they go, oh, this isn't working. So when we build the CI guide, we work with the ad agency that's involved as well to say, right, what are your biggest touch points? What are your pain points with the current brand as we're developing? So to give an example, busy working on a brand currently where I said to the ad agency, fine, these are your pain points. You want to do something a bit more fun, and it needs to be fun from a campaign base. Because what goes to market with a lot of brands, it's the same thing over and over and over and over, and the client gets tired of it. The consumer gets tired of it. Sales drop. People change from one brand to another brand. So how do we make the brand easier and create more interest for brands? We say to the client, right, and to the ad agency. So now you want to do this beautifully sort of type-led poster. Take something like an MTN, like Adobe went to market. It was terrible. It was this South African flag and the word Ayoba. It had nothing to do with the CI guide. And the brand guys and everyone in brand and CI said, this is not a brand, doesn't work. But it's kind of a cool campaign that kind of works. It drove sales up in the data campaign. When that dropped, sales start dropping again. So what do? We said to them, here's some other assets you can play with in terms of a brand on a comms space. Yes, we've got our typeface currently, which is what our brand's about. We've got another typeface that we're starting to introduce that's got certain nuances of the brand. Maybe the brand's round, it's friendly, it's approachable. We introduce different sort of typefaces that the ad agency guys can use, which sort of plug into the brand. There could be a beautiful display typeface that they want to do like a campaign for Ayoba or whatever the campaign is. They can use that typeface, it still ties into the brand. It doesn't feel like there's a disconnect, because generally campaign and ad is a big disconnect. So what brand assets can we allow them to play with that makes it a bit more flexible? Yes, you have a photographic style, and your photographic style is how you grade your photos, these are the angles you use, but what else can we play on a bit further? Is there an illustration style that comes in to actually make a brand a bit more playful? When do you use that illustration style? So we work with the ad agencies, with the digital agencies, or departments within businesses all the time to find out what their pain points are instead of dictating to them, because then it becomes a bit more of a partnership and a two-way kind of street, as opposed to one-way traffic from us dictating.
And that makes more sense. It's more collaborative in the approach.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be. I mean, I think over the years I've been trying, and I'm still making my mission, is to bridge that gap between ad and brand. It has to be able to, you have to be able to do it somewhere along the line. I've seen it start working, but then egos come into play again. You start getting a fight between brand and ad again, and it starts.
Yeah,
so there's got to be a way to balance that, and how do we balance that? I mean, I'm not going to go into an ad agency and dictate how to do things. I'm not an ad agency person. I understand the market and I understand how it works, but for me, that's not the way I go. I'm brand-led, strategically taught and strategically led in my thinking and how I get a brand to market. But I can understand what your challenges are, you can understand what my challenges are, and let's work together to kind of like find this beautiful middle ground to actually put a brand to market.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Pleasure.
And chatting. I mean, you'll be back because we have we've got many more questions to discuss, and there's much more coming in terms of looking at, when to involve patent attorneys, what is brand architecture. So brand is something that one can talk on. It's a huge subject. You can kind of keep going with it, and I think that the audience will really benefit even just from today's show, just with that little bit more education And then later on, as we progress with the shows, we're definitely going to take the audience through a mentorship program on how that they can just focus their attention as, let's say, they're a freelancer or young creative, or even an organization, as you're talking about. And I like some of the things you said about, thinking about events and adding that into your CI. And that also creatives can start thinking a little bit more dynamically about brand, because when they're in that seat and they're designing for the client, doing that brand, and whether they're at a point where they're just creating a table number or they're a little bit higher up the food chain and they're doing an advert, they also need to consider brand, as you're saying. And that's what I really like about this approach. Thanks to the audience, and I'd also like to say very special thanks to Lola. She's been helping us with the camera work and the sound. Luca's gone away. He's doing some recordings overseas, and she's been standing in for him and also helping us with some editing. So a special thanks to Lola. You guys must have a look at our team and the About Us on our webpage, and you can find out more about Lola. She's also an amazing artist, and if you have a look at her prints, they're all for sale on her website, which will direct you to. So thank you, Lola. And I would also like to say thank you to the listeners for making this possible, and for all the team and everyone who's involved in believing in this and helping us get this off the ground. We would love to hear from you. We want to hear your comments. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear your constructive criticism, because we're also building a brand that we're hoping will last longer and that we can meet the needs of the listeners. So until next time, I hope you've enjoyed the show, and thank you so much.